that it needs improvement. Some students even have no idea about how truly unhealthy many school foods are, and they think that if it just has a tag healthy, that it is. And even if we can't improve school lunches, I believe that we should at least inform the students that the dangers of what they are consuming. And on the next page, there's more on GMO foods, which are causing a large uproar worldwide, and they're banned in most first world countries, many second world, and even some third. Thinking about how bad they have to be if countries full of starving citizens are turning it away. They're illegal to grow in most of Europe, and most components in our school lunches are banned there. China is turning away some crops that some of America's corn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Jerry Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I won't hold it against you today for not letting me eat with you, but the next time I will. This is the first time in 27 years I've ever been told I couldn't eat at the board meeting. And I think there needs to be something done about that, because you have news reporters and different people coming in on seeing me. And so I just need you to look at that, because it's not healthy for you as a board to turn people away, whether it's me or anyone else. I think you need to provide for something in a way that it be healthy. That's not the real big issue. The county commissioners just voted on a $1.3 million to do ball fields and some things out at the Inca Center, and it's going to be looking at 90 acres. Your board attorney is very well aware of the contamination. It's not been brought out that anybody knows anything. Your county attorney is also the attorney for the AB Tech board. It is the contamination under the OTM building, TCE, 100 parts per billion, which don't sound much when you talk about CTS plant, but the state law allows it at 3 parts per billion. The building is in bad shape. The county and the AB Tech is going to have to do something about the lease if they ain't already, because they leased it for 100 years. Now, when you start talking about the contamination just 1,500 feet away or 2,000 feet away, you better be thinking bigger than that, because this contamination on the landfill portion of this property where they're talking about the ball fields, this is on a 10-acre, 15-acre landfill on a 44-acre site, which they haven't even done a brownfield site on it yet. And the brownfield site they've already done with the Inca Center, and it's already proposed to go ahead with it. It's got land reuse restrictions on it that you can't even put a kennel on it. We're talking about dogs, cats, whatever. You can't put anything on it growing any kind of trees and shrubbery and stuff of that nature. You can't have a child daycare. This is on the part of 56.4 acres that's already been approved for land brownfield. Now they ain't even done brownfield on the study of this thing, and the county commissioners had the unforeseen foresight to go forward with this money to approve with the foresight of maybe that this thing will be approved. Well, I think that the school board members and the attorney especially is not in the dark about the contamination in the Inca district, and this thing has been kept under wrap. Because I brought this out in July 2013 at the Commissioner Board meeting in the Inca District at the library. The county manager and the planner was shaking so bad when I told them about what was there. They were shaking visibly, and I'll tell you what, there are more people that knows about this contamination than what's in the room. And it's not being talked about, but your attorney is well aware of this. His other attorneys in the firm is well aware of it. There's another attorney that knows about it on the opposing side. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Finally, we have Linda Humphreys.
My back to these folks behind me. This is a little awkward setting, but I see this at City Council. council, needless to say. Ladies behind me, young ladies that spoke of nutrition in the schools, you did a fine job, by the way. I was really impressed with that. I live here in Buncombe County, as many of you know, in Barnersville. I taught school in the Buncombe County school system for 33 plus years. I had the pleasure or displeasure, depends upon how you look at it, of eating lunch every day with my students. The students were good, the nutrition wasn't always so. Something that really rang a bell with me there was when the young lady just said, the packaging. I could never eat from the salad bar because you had the prepackaged lettuce with the chemicals on it. But in today's world, that may have upset my stomach. But as Mr. Rice said, I guess there are bigger issues than that chemical that I would eat. The issue that concerns me, that concerns Jerry Rice, and it concerns a lot of parents, is the fact that the commissioners are putting the students I worked with for 33 plus years on a contamination ball field. It blew my mind. That's their problem. You have another problem tonight. You're looking at the nutrition procurement plan and the bid awards. You know there are issues as related to a bid of $232,000 for Ecolab to supply cleaning supplies, etc. for the kitchens in the Buncombe County school system. You have contracted in the past with Champion for $89,000. I believe articles have been written and folks have compared it to, do we want to buy Dawn or do we want to buy True Value dishwashing liquid? Well, folks, you're spending this county and these taxpayers out of money. In my house, I buy what works and what is the cheapest. To vote yes on this procurement plan to go along with your co-op schools, Henderson, Haywood, etc., would be wrongdoing for the citizens of Buncombe County. Table this, as Haywood County did, take further look at it, or just vote no. It's a very simple thing to do. This is back to our children in the Inca district and those who will be coming from out of state. God bless them and God bless all of you in the future.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to move on to the items on the action agenda. First item on the action agenda is the Child Nutrition Procurement Plan. Award this bid. The motion to approve. Is there a second? Okay. Thank you. Ms. Payne, do you have some initial comments you'd like to make?
It's not really put anything formally, Chairman Reinhardt, got it all members of the board, but I do have kind of a brief summary of this handout, so I would be glad to get everyone if you have any questions, or feel free to ask any questions that have come up since you reviewed the materials as requested. In response to Ms. Humphrey's opening public comments, please, I do want her to know that the information that I believe that she has been studying is not accurate, so I would take the opportunity to defend that if I may, and kind of use a few minutes to educate the board, since I've only been back a year, but have been involved in the procurement process since 2000, or 1994 actually.
Why don't you come on up to the podium and then
All right.
maybe you can kind of give us a little summary and then we'll
And
ask the board members if
if
they...
it's appropriate, can I tell these ladies I thought that was wonderful and I want you on my nutrition advisory council?
I think that would be a good idea. Absolutely.
Make sure they have my cards. Thank you. Because they're addressing the problems that we address every day, especially in our procurement practices. So I thought that was beautiful.
you have something you can address that?
Yes, thank you. And that would be- Basically, all this is kind of a summary of the highlights of the chemical bid that Haywood County Board published. The chairperson for the chemical bid was Ms. Allison Francis, which is my colleague. And I did the food bid, and Henderson County, the produce bids. We work as a Western North Carolina co-op, but for some of our bids, we are standalone counties simply because geographics and the location of the fuel. So, looking at that, does anyone have any specific questions for me? Because I think it's just a timeline. I know that the comments have been made that we are willing to spend $272,000 with Ecolab, or whatever the figure was, a couple $100,000. The last year we spent with Champion $134,000, so we would not even enter into over $200,000 range. But we're finding that we as laymen, professionals, bid awarders, work with several different groups, talk to industry members, and have found that gallon for gallon, if you will, Ecolab is the less expensive product. Ms. Allison Francis in Haywood County did a pilot school with both chemicals and learned that Ecolab was more expensive and also less corrosive to the machines. We felt comfortable with the decision and hope that you'll support that.
I have a quick question. It may be in your summary, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I just want to make sure that, I spoke with Mr. Venturella. Mr. Venturella, this was a bid that was done properly according to the state standards. Has this bid been protested by anyone that bid the project? No formal protest?
No formal protest. And I actually asked Mr. Johnson of Champion if he would like to protest or was interested in protest, and he said no, that he would like us to review the bid next year, which of course we would do.
So there'll be an opportunity in the year to review
Sure.
this? Okay.
So for a rollover, if Ecolab is the most responsive bidder, but to review both
Okay.
companies.
All
Yes.
right, thank you. Christine?
Yes,
Ms. Bryant?
Can you help me, because, and I appreciate all the information, but in looking at it, it appears we had 4 bidders that didn't all bid on everything. It was obvious to me, or jumped out at me, a couple of things. Number one, there was one supplier who chose, I don't know why they're not, I don't guess they're here, but they chose not to use the form, for lack of a better term, that was supplied, which seems to me to be someone, maybe I'm wrong, but that person or that company could have been disqualified from even being considered if they don't follow the procurement guidelines. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. I did not attend the bid award since I did not publish the bid, and learned that one of the vendors indeed did not submit the original document and chose to create their own spreadsheet. Ms. Allison accepted that spreadsheet, and that would be something that would come out later if there were a protest that would come into the mix.
And along those lines, and looking at this, it was obvious, the other thing that was obvious to me was, even though you were very specific, or the group was specific in how you asked for the information, you didn't always get it that way. So how did you, or what did you do, what was process with all of these vendors in terms of determining the price per gallon? Because some of them gave you bids in solid, and some gave you bids in liquid. So how did the group, what did you do? Because it jumped out at me that there were a lot of differences there. And so how do you handle that? What did
We
you do?
actually had samples of the products. My administrative assistant, Kelly Frady, Robert Raw from Henderson County, Allison Francis from Haywood County, and myself met in Allison's office. And we actually took the gallons, the liquid gallons, and we took the math and the paper from the solid containers, and we converted everything to a liquid form, so we priced by the gallon. So we took it down to what would this 1 ounce of this powder or 1 ounce of this liquid cost, and broke it down to 1 ounce and then converted to the gallon.
And when you did that, who was the low bidder?
Ecolab.
Thank you.
Ms.
It's on the
Paul?
second page of the summary.
Ms. Paul, you have a question?
yes. I was first alerted to this issue by a citizen in Haywood County who'd done a public records request on the bids. And Haywood County's documentation says that we would be paying Ecolab's $232,000, and Champion's bid was $89,000, which is actually less than what we paid for the contract this past school year. This,
Did you have a copy of that? Do you have a copy of that?
The entire board should have received a copy. I forwarded this
And
to
you do have that
everybody.
copy, Ms. Baldwin, and with all due respect, what that copy is a copy that Mr. Johnson from Champion submitted after the bid analysis. It doesn't match our Buncombe County Schools' actual sales numbers. And in my meeting with Mr. Johnson, he suggested that the material safety data sheet for Ecolab was incorrect, which is certainly out of my realm of knowledge. I have to take his at face value and Ecolab's. So that large number is based on his believing that Ecolab's MSDA sheet is incorrect.
So what is the total cost for Ecolab?
The total cost for Ecolab is based on the gallon, and let's look at the second page of that summary. Champions would have been $237.84, Ecolab's is $231.30. So if you look at the original bid document, we had 0 for usage, which is why we awarded by the cost of the gallon, because due to smart lunch, you can go into more paper goods, and using less plastic trays and trying to be a greener cafeteria, there's no way to forecast what we'll spend. What I'm doing is making sure that we don't overspend what we spent with Ecolab, which was $134,000 last year. And if we find that this is not cost effective, we have in the contract to void the contract within 30 days if you choose to approve it.
So last year, this data from Haywood says $101,000 is how much we spent.
On Champion Supply, it's $134,241.18. But remember, the numbers you're looking at were provided by Mr. Johnson.
Okay, this was never clarified. I mean, I sent you all the documentation days ago. Never received any documentation saying this was from him. Why would Haywood County Schools send?
Well, they sent the total bid award packet. So they sent everything that was in that packet, and that became part of public record when he submitted it.
And this is not only with Haywood County, it's also with Henderson County.
Correct.
So the 3 counties, which would be a total of, what,
At
8
least-
schools?
Well, we're the largest 40, yeah,
They're probably
Yeah.
about 8 schools. So this is a
so 40,
example.
yeah, right, 75 to 80.
Going in together to get the best price.
And to get the quantity pricing, it went collectively, yes.
And so when you look at the bid, based on the numbers that are on this sheet, it's clear there's a difference between the 2 bids, and everyone had the same opportunity to bid the same, set of specs.
Correct,
And,
correct, correct.
I mean, I find it kind of interesting that, that this has all gotten started. The gentleman who lost, there's 4 companies
4 companies.
that bid, and none of the 3 that are high bid have protested this bid. So I don't understand really why you have state standards that have to be followed when you do a bid, and I feel pretty comfortable that we've done it.
Well, the fact that he did not
We have
protest.
someone needs to
the fact
file a
that he did not
protest and look
right.
at it.
He did not protest, therefore he must be comfortable too.
Yes.
Well, he called me actually, and he sent me an email, and I can read it to everyone. He said he didn't protest it because he knew the products were already in the schools. The Ecolab had already been put in the schools. The award letters went out in July. I'm not sure why we're voting on it after it's already in use. It hasn't even been approved by the board yet. It could have come to us in August, I'm sure. I'm not sure why the bid.
Well, Ms. Baldwin, the reason it was able to come in August is because Haywood County did table it, which delayed our being able to present it to our board to stay collectively in the co-op with them. And still looking at the dollar figures that I can continue to operate the businesses as necessary as long as I stay under that $90,000 threshold, which I have done. So please know that I didn't like it. I did not enjoy that Haywood County tabled it. It has been uncomfortable. But we, as the cooperative, and everyone that reviewed the bid, I do feel like we made the right decision and pleased to bring this new product to the board for approval.
Well, certainly if there's any problems, you'll let us know. And we can address
I'll be
it.
the first, yes, sir.
Thank you.
The score sheets on here, it says, Buncombe. I'm assuming that you were the one that did the score sheets.
He wrote, I did see that Mr. Miller I think that he did that for each. So in Ms. Allison's, he said that she awarded. In Buncombe's, he said that I awarded. In Henderson's, he said that Mr. Rolfe awarded, but actually we all three did. I have that award criteria right in front of me here. And the only difference, since I was the largest county in Ecolab, I'm familiar with Ecolab from the past, but Champion was the incumbent. I was very mindful not to hold him accountable for things I knew were not perfect, because I know that things will not be perfect with Ecolab as well. So my score for Ecolab was 93, and only a 2-point difference with Champion for 91. Haywood and Henderson both did pilot studies where they found Ecolab product to be more effective and more cost effective. So more effective and efficient, and they were harsher in their scoring.
Dr. Baldwin has a couple of things to say.
Just one quick question, Ms. Payne. The amount of time that was involved with you, and I don't want you to speak for Haywood and Henderson, but I would assume it would be parallel. The amount of time it took to go through this particular plan, process, being the analysis that you did. Can you give the board any estimate on that?
On this, on the chemical bed alone, I'm sure that Ms. Francis has probably put at least 60 to 80 hours into the project itself. Kelly, Frady, and myself for Buncombe County Schools wrote the spreadsheet and did the legwork on finding acceptable, good product that would be competitive so that we would have a competitive bid, which was our motivation to begin with. And with everything that I've done this week, I probably have about 60 to 80 hours in this project.
And I understand that Haywood County did table that. And in fact, I think the board, did the board receive actually 2 emails I sent? Because I was concerned with some disinformation that was being presented and some of those numbers coming from a newspaper article that did not reflect any official numbers that I understood from Haywood, Henderson, or Buncombe.
None were requested. No official numbers were requested.
Yeah, I think the board is aware. I did meet myself personally. In fact, Dr. Adale's here. We both met with Mr. Johnson. I thought had a very positive conversation. I asked him specifically if he had any complaint regarding the bidding process itself, and his comment to me, and Dr. Adale, you sitting in the room, was no. And we asked, again, what was his request, and I thought it was a very reasonable request that at the end of this particular cycle that we look at rebidding that, and that's something that we periodically do with all of our contracts. So I thought, again, that's a very reasonable request. But I do want to make sure that the board did receive 2 separate emails from me once there's some initial information that I felt like was confusing to the board. Did each board member receive that? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm still very concerned that we don't have a total here. If what Mr. Johnson came up with as a total is not correct or something, what is the correct total?
Well,
based
there
on
isn't
the
one,
usage in the
and
past?
there again, there isn't one. And so what Mr. Johnson did is he took last year's usage numbers and said, this is what Buncombe County purchased. So I'm going to take my bid price for 14-15, and I'm going to multiply that by 638 cases or whatever cases, okay? He can do that this year because how we're using the product has changed. So all I can do is forecast as a part of Object Code 651, and I'm going to look at my 40% food cost, my 40% labor cost, and I know that I have 2% to spend on chemicals. So what I can do, Ms. Baldwin, is go and look at my budget, and I'll just email Dr. Baldwin, and he can pass on what the 2% I project to spend would be. So I can't give you an actual figure tonight.
But we have to vote on it tonight.
Pardon me?
We have to vote to approve it tonight, and I don't know.
And I would hope that you would based on the 2%. And on the awarding of the bid, that it was, Ecolab was the lowest, and that I hope you would support our cooperative.
Also have questions about the food. We only received a 2-page memo And this is a multi-million-dollar contracts that we're being asked to approve without knowing what the bids were. You sent some information, but I had asked for quotes from every bidder for the food products, and I did not get that information.
Did you not? I think that was in one of the
Is
emails.
this separate from the bid
Tabulation.
contract?
It's a U.S. Foods contract.
Okay, we're not on that right now,
Okay.
so,
That's all part of this whole thing we're voting on.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about the contract. we're
okay,
discussing.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Ms. Hank, can you just maybe tell me again the figure you said for, you used Champion, we used Champion last year. How much did we spend last year with Champion?
$134,000.
And so and that's for years.
That's for 1 year.
Okay.
At 13-14 school year.
Okay, so at $134,000, and Mr. Johnson is projecting that this bid would also be for a year at $89,000? Okay. Did he explain why it was significantly less this year as compared to last year?
I have not met with him yet. I was actually going to ask Dr. Baldwin to follow protocol so that we could meet, because we do have the right to audit that bid, and I think that we should.
Yeah, I did ask that question when he called me, and he said he lowered his prices to be competitive. He wanted to ensure that he would win the bid, win the bid based on price. So are you saying that you're accepting this bid, it's not based on price? Because the criteria, our first priority is price.
Well, it's not a first criteria. There's not a 1, 2, 3, 4 price is number one. There's several different criteria, and there's a weighted average. And then you have a group scoring it, so you collect the totals of each member of the group and award it accordingly.
Right, and his services, one criteria, quality delivery service. I had the numbered price from the document.
Mr. Chair, it seemed to me that at the end of the day, any bidder in anything we do, if they don't submit a bid that's properly submitted following the documentation that's requested, we'll have this problem with every bid we put out there for a building, for a fire system, for food services. It seems to me Champion, someone went above and beyond the call to include them in the process. And then to even consider their numbers that is a summary of something going from 130, what did you say, 4,000 to 89? Is that correct? 90, 89? I mean, that's help me with some math, Mr. Craig, but that's what, 30% decrease in a year's time? I'm not sure how a business could stay in business doing that. But he had the same opportunity that all the other vendors did from the beginning to take the proper documentation, specific request of size, weight, packaging, corrosive, non-corrosive, a lot of detail in the request, and be a part of that, and submit it, and be a little bit.
And he did, all 4 companies did submit their SDA data sheets, but they were so large, I should have put a blanket in there for you, that those particular sheets were there, which is what we use to mix up the recipes to come down the gallon price.
So what I'm looking at here then from Champion that looks different from Ecolab and the other 2 vendors is what they submitted, or is not what they submitted?
It is what they submitted, but I was talking about the SDS sheets.
Okay.
What?
Thank you.
And you keep going back to the fact that, or I keep going back to the fact that he's not protesting. If we didn't do it right, he shouldn't protest.
And everyone, all 4 of these folks will have the opportunity in another year to put it out for bid.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the calculations that he did took into account the dilution rates for each product. And I don't understand why we aren't calculating these dilution rates and being able to give the board the actual proposed projected cost.
Ms. Baldwin, the reason that I didn't take into consideration the dilution rate is because the dilution rate, and I put it in the summary, is based on Mr. Johnson saying there was a 0.33 dilution rate versus a 1-to-1. So he was saying that Ecolab, his information is based on him saying that Ecolab's data sheet was wrong, and that's a legal contract document. So I did not question that, no more than I questioned one of Mr. Johnson's SDS sheets.
Yeah, I think he was actually using the product label, from what I saw.
Right, I wrote that down. I wrote that down during our meeting.
Yes, again, and looking at the other items that we are to approve, I mean, I have no amount. There was, an amount for U.S. Foods, I believe, that was over $1 million on here, but I saw, no quotes from other vendors that bid on each of these. Like some of these.
Well, only 2 vendors bid. We had 4 interested parties. 2 vendors bid, and you have the cover sheet with Reinhardt and U.S. Foods. And if you saw no bid on a Reinhardt line,
And that's a different Reinhardt, it's spelled different, just.
And it's out of Tennessee, it says Tennessee bars. No relation. But therefore, if you did not see one, because it's a WNC tabulation, so all the tabulation is there. And if not, if you'd like to resend the spreadsheet that you got, I double check and make sure you got the correct one.
Now, was this one of the attachments Dr. Baldwin sent?
Correct.
Correct. Were the ones that say bottom line firm with rollover clause, were those bid out before you decided to roll it over to the same?
There would have been no reason to bid if we decided to roll over, so we're just asking for board to approve the rollover.
Yeah, I'm concerned that there were so few bidders. How do you publicize these RFPs that go out, or whatever your name is for that?
Actually, on the food bid, I got on the phone and called several people, and we did tours of Reinhardt Food Services in Tennessee, Cisco, Charlotte, U.S. Foods, Fort Mill, and TFG we did not tour, but we did invite them to the table, so we solicited potential vendors. And we have our vendor list, and we send our bids to them to give them at least 30-day notice to complete those RFPs or bid documents. And we also post that on our child nutrition webpage.
But all the ones on this list, there were basically 3 that you rolled over, the rest were rebid.
Correct.
Was Pet Dairy the only one for milk? Where's this? I'm looking for the spreadsheet now.
Pet Dairy was a rollover for milk, and it was exclusive to Buncombe. But the pricing was the same, and they were going to hold the pricing. If we had rebid, the pricing would have gone up. So I negotiated with them to hold the pricing.
But in the case of Champion, the pricing went down when you bid it out.
Not necessarily. Whether it went down or not, it still wasn't the lower bidder. So he decreased his margins. He bid to win, but he did not win.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next on the action agenda we have, thank you, Ms. Payne. Next on the action agenda we have the addendum to driver's education, the 2014-15 contract with Mountain Professionals. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do we have any questions? All in favor,
I'm
please
sorry,
signify by saying aye.
I had a question about the
Ms. Baldwin, I
increase.
asked if there were any questions and no one said anything.
I'm expressing the question now. Yes, there is a question.
Is there a certain amount of time I need to wait, or?
The fee, well, if you'd rather not discuss items on the agenda.
No, go right ahead. If you have a question, let's just ask it. Don't sit there in silence if you're not going to ask anything.
I was pulling it out on the agenda. I'm sorry that there was a delay. The increase in the fee from $40 to $50 for parents for driver's education. What is the justification for this increase? And is this something we've never increased a contract that was signed before? I just don't know if the purchasing agent is here, Mr. Bennett.
He's coming down right now. I think if everyone, there was a whole change in the General Assembly, I believe.
Yes.
Are you aware of that, Ms. Baldwin? The General Assembly changed the fee.
That was
I'm
not in
just
our,
curious.
that was not in our board documentation.
Okay, it was in the news several times.
Yes.
Okay.
The reason, in talking with Mr. Venturelli in particular on almost a daily basis, beginning in May, about the upcoming contract. And of course, the General Assembly at that time, we didn't know what was going to happen. Part of the General Assembly was ready to disband driver's ed and require parents to pay the full fee. Fortunately, other members of the General Assembly said, no, we're not going to do that. And we literally didn't know at the end of June if we were going to be in business officially. Mr. Venturelli and I, during May and June, decided that we needed to get something in front of you folks so you could act on it for the coming year. Otherwise, come June the 30th, we would have had to have ceased and desist from driver's ed. So we did the same contract that we had in the previous year with the understanding when the General Assembly got through, we would readdress it. Sometime in July, and my memory fails me exactly what date in July, at 4 o'clock in the morning, the General Assembly agreed, the Conference Committee agreed they would fund driver's ed one more year out of the Highway Trust Fund. They cut the entire program across the state, if memory serves me, and I stand to be corrected, $350,000. That was for the entire state. But they upped what an LEA could charge the parents or the student from $50 to $65. If you all have been on board, and most of you have for a few years, they started out a few years ago at $40. Mountain Professionals was able to hold it to $20. And the main reason that we were able to do that is our teachers voluntarily took a 11-point-something% pay cut. We didn't lose a teacher because of that, which I think speaks so well of our faculty. A couple of years later, they keep cutting the allotment, and a couple of years later, they raised that fee to $50. And that's what we've been working on for the last 2 years. We held ours at $40. They give us an increase of $20. We give our teachers half of their cut back 2 years ago. With this request, I propose that we give our teachers the other percent back. So the lion's share of this $10 request that we're asking is to get our teachers back to where they were 4 years ago, which I think is reasonable. The other reason, because of the uncertainty for the last couple of years, we haven't replaced our automobiles like we would like to. We're using our automobiles more mileage. Let me assure you they're safe, they're being inspected, they're being serviced, and your students are safe. But we have postponed buying some automobiles. This year, we're going to be in business next year or not, we're going to have to buy 8. That's a pretty significant outlay for a small company such as mine. So that is the reason I'm here asking for the $10 more. Many of the schools in North Carolina are charging the full 65. We got a little criticism from other LEAs across the state when we were charging 40 instead of 50. They're saying you're making us look bad. You know?
Mr. Leffert, do you have an idea what the state average is for the charge? Any idea?
My son-in-law, my office manager, said that here. I may ask for his help. The average, Sam, if I were guessing, Last year, when it was $50, the average was of those charging, Sam, help me. Would you?
I'm looking on average right now, when you talk to Reggie Flythe, sorry. Reggie Flythe is the DPI representative for Driver's Ed, and he put out a map. And most of the counties are charging. Some of the counties, including Asheville City, are supplementing with local funds. Not much, $8 per child is what Asheville City's supplementing with. But most of the school systems, 115 LEAs, are charging a fee, and it was the maximum fee they could charge. At that time, it was 50, now it's gone to 65.
With Asheville supplementing $8, how much are the parents required to pay?
I don't think. Could you ask the question again, please?
With the $8 supplement that the Asheville City Schools are paying, what is the amount, or they were paying?
They are paying $8.75 above the state allotment, and the reason it's lower is because their teachers didn't get their raise back, and they volunteered to do that.
And the state allotment is?
Last year it was $191.90.
191.90.
Yeah. I think I said this last year. 21 years ago, the allotment in Mitchell County, where I'm from, was $275 per student. At that time, 21 years ago, it varied from LEA to LEA because the state was paying them based on certification, years of experience, and whatnot. There wasn't one consistent allocation for every LEA. Mitchell County's was $275. There were some counties 21 years ago that was well over $300. There were counties well under the $275. So it varied.
Okay.
And when they changed the allotment, they said you're going to get so much per student. And that's what we've been on ever since. The first years, it was 240, 245, 21 years ago, 22 years ago. And each year it's come down, and then they added a fee. And you think this year's bad, or I think it's bad for driver's ed. Right now, we're not in the budget for next year. The word is next year it will be a fee to the parent.
But the total amount?
The total thing. As I understand it now, I keep looking over the sound for him to agree or disagree with me, boards of education will still need to choose a contractor. Dr. Bowden, is that your understanding?
That's absolutely correct, and just to make sure that the board's aware, I'm looking at my August superintendent comments, because this was very important, and I said this because I wanted the public to hear it loud and clear. Beginning next year, no state funds will be used to supplement driver's education. More to come later. The cost can be set at a limit of $65 for a student's enrollment. And I will also just take an opportunity to thank Mr. Levitt. He has come to this board. Those of you veteran board members, he's come almost every year. And when he stepped in front of us, his reputation is excellent across this state as a driver's education provider. But he's always been able to come to this table and help our kids, knowing the hardships that many of them will have in terms of raising that money. So, I just want to say thank you on behalf of our kids out there.
If I may make one point, I think our strength as a company, and I'll use Buncombe County, we have approximately 17, maybe 18 teachers that's teaching driver's ed in Buncombe County for your schools. Of those 17 or 18, and I'm going from memory, 15 of them are either current teachers or former teachers. You know these teachers, the principals know them, Dr. Baldwin knows them, the parents know them, the kids know them, and if you get good people, you have to pay them. And I'm proud to say, and I don't mind to say, we're averaging paying $17.50 an hour. We pay better than any commercial school in North Carolina. And to get good people and to keep them, you have to pay them. They deserve it.
But you're still using my driver's ed teacher.
I'm sorry.
You're still using my driver's ed teacher.
I was going to say that if you thought about it, you probably have a driver's ed teacher working for us at the top of you as well.
Mr. Miller.
80 million.
Yeah, I'm looking at the contract that we approved on June 5th, and I just want to clarify, It says the amount of the contract will not exceed the allowed allotment the board receives from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for driver education. So I just want to clarify, what we're saying is the allotment has gone down from the state. Is that why we need to increase this? Because you're going to get less money from Buncombe County schools?
We do 9 counties, 9 LEAs in western North Carolina. Overall, we lost 400 and some students in those 9 counties. Buncombe County sort of held its own. Their allotment's down a little bit. I'm not sure how much total allotment, but Buncombe County, Rutherford County was the other one. Rutherford County actually had a pretty good increase in today's world. The rest of the counties, the smaller counties, Mitchell, Yancey, Polk, Madison, they had significant percentage drops.
Now, is that because there are fewer students
Fewer
taking driver's
students, yes.
eds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the state allotment, the amount of money we're paying you is based on per student.
Third month, ADM, freshman.
Does it have anything to do with, were any classes canceled this summer, any driver's ed
No, ma'am.
classes?
No, ma'am. As I stated earlier, we were getting close to having to decide whether or not to shut down. We were within days of calling our teachers and saying, quit. And we kept getting a little better news and a little better news, and we really found some political help in the House of Representatives, Republican, that picked up our calls and sort of carried their water for us, if that's a proper analogy.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to commend Mr. Ledford and the efforts that he's made for our students in Buncombe County as well as for the other counties that use your services. And I wish the General Assembly would continue to fund. However, if they have chosen not to, I would really like to thank you for your frugality and your proposal here. But I'd really like for you to buy 8 new cars so that our students would be in safe new vehicles. And when I pass one on the interstate, that I'd be assured that they're in good hands as well as I.
Okay, I agree. We developed a philosophy several years ago. We don't use the smaller cars. We started out using Ford Escorts, and that was before we had the Buncombe County contract. Since then, we're mid-size. All of our automobiles have side impact airbags. Let me assure you, they're
They brake on the right side of the
Brake
car.
on the right side. They're properly maintained, and all of our mechanics know what we expect through the inspection each time they're in, and we're real proud of our company. We really are. I believe in driver's ed. I think there's 4 things that every student should know before they leave public schools. They should know how, we used to call it typing, we call it keyboarding now. Everyone should know how to keyboard. Everyone should know how to do basic first aid, maybe to include CPR. Everyone should be able to swim the swimming pool, an Olympic-sized pool, maybe no more. And everyone should know how to drive safely. So I understand where drivers ed fits in the academic world. We are not French 3, we're not chemistry, we're not